Love it. For me, we're a community, right? Cannabis has always been about the community aspect of things, and we should all be learning and working with each other. In the last few years, I think there's been a huge segregation between, the different. It's become a competition, and I feel like we've gotten to a point where, where we go into to where we are now, bringing back that community is really important. So education with other, groups of people, if they can come in and they can educate your budtenders and your team, that's awesome. But you always have to have education. You've got regulatory, you've got compliance, you've got teamwork, you've got operations, everything.
I love the spirit of what you do, and all things being equal, software, you definitely want to work with a company that has that heart in the industry. Back at MG Unpacked, 2024 New Jersey Hard Rock Cafe, Casino, and Hotel. Is that right?
Yep.
I'm still not sure. Well, it's Hard Rock Hotel, Casino.
Hard Rock Hotel. Yeah, the cafe is where you eat.
There's a cafe here, too, though.
Yeah, and a bar.
Hard Rock Bar. All right. So we are here with an old friend, Amita. I don't know how many. Have you been on how many shows?
At least a half a dozen.
Yeah.
I'm an oldie but a goodie, right?
I think we've interviewed like 1,000 people.
That's awesome.
Over the last year and a half, and created all this content. I look at it like a almanac of like the cannabis industry as to who does what and how things work. For the college students out there, or anybody in the industry, learn more about the industry. Mm-hmm. That's kind of. So how are you doing? I
am doing well. How are you?
Good. What are you doing here at MG Unpacked?
We are presenting our Proteus 420 software to my home. This is my home tri-state. I'm a Philly girl, so I'm bringing cannabis to education and advocacy to my tri-state area. So I'm super excited about it.
And you're based out of
Southern California.
Right.
Yeah,
and so,
San Diego.
what you guys have a booth here?
Yeah, booth 715.
715.
Yep.
Are you speaking as well?
No speaking this time.
What makes your software better? What makes Proteus different?
I don't like the word better, and I think because in this landscape, everything's modifying and changing. But we have longevity. A lot of what separates us from what our competitors do is, you got what's called a tech stack, where you have a certain type of software that sits on a base, and then they build software on top of it that works with it. We're a tech deck, or what we like to call an ERP. We basically come in and we are a full service system for the businesses. So from cultivation all the way out to retail delivery. We've recently added consumption lounges. We're building our product so that it's consistently staying 3 to 5 years ahead of the curve for the industry. So we're not in the industry in the now, we're in the industry from before, now, and in the next 5 years.
Okay, so it's seed to sale software.
Yep.
I like how you said cultivation to delivery.
Oh, yeah.
You changed the seed to sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard anybody in the software space refer to it as cultivation to delivery. They usually say seed to sale.
Yeah. Well, I think like anything,
I like it better.
For me, it starts with the seed, and it ends with the consumer taking the product, right? So everything in between there is the manufacturing, the making, the distribution, but it's all about that chain of custody. So for us, I'm a hand talker. So for us, when we think about it, it has to make sense to the business. You have to use language that everybody understands. In the cannabis space, they understand cultivation, they understand delivery. So why not fill in everything in between that?
No, I'm thinking I'm never going to say seed to sale again. I'm always just like cultivation delivery.
You're welcome.
Because that sounds more technically
sexy.
Precise.
It's sexy.
I also I have a little bias in there. I am a big believer in delivery.
Oh, I am too.
You got to give the patients and the consumers what they want.
The access to it.
And industries should all be based around what the patients and the consumers want. So they want delivery.
Yes.
They want Amazon-style delivery.
Yep.
Retailers might not necessarily want that.
Correct.
I'm sure you guys stay neutral on the whole subject.
we are very well rounded in what we have to provide for our business partnerships, right? So for us, we have to think about how they're going to service the consumer, but from the beginning of how the seed is going to grow, how the grow is going to be made into product, and how that product is going to go into the consumer's hands. It's all about that delivery, right? So when we think about the delivery of the product, how it goes through the different transitions, I'm a proponent of being able to give it to the consumer in any way that they see and deem fit. And states will come in, depending on the state, to tell you how they want to see it. Look at New York. New York is saying we'll do delivery, but it's no cash. You have to prepay for it. But then we're in the stigma of really not being able to take prepayments in a lot of states, and so we're creating our own problems in the aspect of it. And all at the end of the day, we want to do is get the product to the consumer.
You are a subject matter expert. I love that. But we really haven't talked too much about where you came from and how you got into cannabis.
Oh gosh, I've been in cannabis since I was born.
Okay. She's an OG.
Yeah, my dad.
This is unshackled, so you can talk about that stuff.
Yeah, no, I love it. My dad, for me, where I am, I am a big proponent of cannabis. Always have been. My dad used it personally. He grew it. I always call him a concrete grower. He grew it. We had a cement backyard. He had tomato plants and he had cannabis plants. And I love telling it because that was his legacy. He was healing sports figures and people in our community when we grew up in Philadelphia. And so for me, it was always he always explained to me what it was, the medicinal aspects of it. So as I transitioned through life, I learned about the healing properties of it and how it worked for human consumption on different matters, from the mouth. When you smoke it, why does the body break it down a certain way? So from the biochemical level, I got really interested in it and went into nursing for a little bit. And then lo and behold, I moved to California to meet my husband and now my business partner. And 26 years later, we've morphed into technology, to cannabis, and it just was that round robin game. Unfortunately, lost my dad about 6 years ago now. And so for me, it's become a legacy of making sure that what he taught me is something that I can do. So I have kind of transitioned not just from the passion of the software in the industry, but also the consumerism of it and the advocacy and the education of being able to, on the retail side, train your bud tenders properly, making sure that they're giving the right information because, a lot of times shops aren't putting the time and effort into their bud tenders and their education, and they're the ones that are selling the product. So they are ultimately the pharmacists of our industry.
It's interesting like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you're giving a guy a couple bucks an hour and they don't feel loved and wanted or trained or given information, how are they supposed to inform the consumer? So education is very, very, it's powerful for me.
So would you suggest that they should pay them more, or that's just certain training for bud tenders, or
I think
how do you solve that problem?
Well, a couple ways. I think the ownerships of the retailers and the deliveries, the ones that are providing the access to the consumers,
right?
I think they have to educate and train their bud tenders. I really think it's important. From a money perspective, look, it comes down to the...
There's a pretty good nursing group we interviewed yesterday on this
awesome.
segment.
Love it. No, I love it. And
what was the nursing people's names? No, that was at Emerald. Sorry, she wasn't there. So, I'm thinking yesterday that was Emerald, and it was like yesterday.
That's what happens when you go through all of the different shows. You're.
It'll be out there. It's in the Emerald segment. It's a great group. We interview a lot of people, they're doing stuff with consumer and patient education.
I love it.
Nurses, MDs. It's some really great program. Damn it, I should remember their name.
I think that's great.
All right, sorry, go ahead and go back to your
No, I love it. For me, we're a community, right? Cannabis has always been about the community aspect of things, and we should all be learning and working with each other. In the last few years, I think there's been a huge segregation between, the different. It's become a competition. Everybody's kind of fighting each other for stuff, and I feel like we've gotten to a point where where we go into to where we are now. Bringing back that community is really important. So education with other, groups of people, if they can come in and they can educate your bud tenders and your team, that's awesome. But, you always have to have education. You've got regulatory, you've got compliance, you've got, teamwork, you've got operations, everything.
I love the spirit of what you do. And, all things being equal, software, you definitely want to work with a company that has that heart in the industry.
I think we're the only one that is not funded. We're self-funded. We self-grow. We do everything ourselves. It's interesting. One of the things we do that's a lot different than most corporation structures is a lot of people. I don't know if you've heard of the top-bottom foundation, right? They take care of the owner-operators first. The middleman is usually the employee, and then the bottom is the consumer or whoever you're selling your product to. So at the end of the day, all the money funnels to the top and then funnels down. And by the time you get to the bottom, there's no money left over. We operate as a bottom top, or top, instead of a top bottom, we operate as a bottom top. So our consumers are our priority. The employees fall in the middle there as well. And then for us as owners, then we are the least, we're the least cognitive at that point, or the ones that don't really matter that much from a money perspective, because if we can make sure that we are providing a superior product to the top, then our customers, our partners, they're all servicing their customers and product the same way. So it's kind of, making sure that the consumer is always taken care of.
I was trying to just think how that relates to trickle-down economics, because it sounded like you were describing trickle-down economics.
Exactly. Well, when you think about it, it's the pyramid shape, right? So from Econ 1, right, you got the pyramid, and everything rotates within the pyramid. But when you flip the pyramid and you make the foundation the part that sits at the top instead of sitting at the bottom, it makes it a little bit more functional, in my opinion, because you're taking care of your employees, who are ultimately taking care of your partners and your customers. And when it funnels up the right way or funnels down the right way, you're taking care of your core people.
I like your metaphor, but I think we should turn things into a sphere.
Round robin.
Or
like the little circle.
Or a cube.
Oh, a cube.
Because I like your pyramid, but it's inherently unstable because you're balancing
on a
tip point.
Yeah, on a tip point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you weeble wobble, but you don't fall down?
Yeah. So we're going to unravel the pyramid model, and we're going to create a sphere model.
That's actually a long time ago in a whole nother life. We have circles in all of our logos. One of our original iterations was a pixeled, right? So a pixel is the little square on your computer screens. We made it a circle, and we said it was taking your customers from beginning to end, running around, right? So you were servicing them from beginning to end. So,
I love metaphors.
Yes.
Analogies.
I feel like I'm a metaphor queen.
That's how children understand things.
Yes.
So I think like a child. But it's important for me to think like a child, and I'll tell you why. It's important for me to not know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Because that way I can think of like how our audience might look at it and say, well, we need to start from the beginning.
Yep.
So it's easy for me to start from the beginning.
Yep.
What can I say?
But when you get to the end is just the beginning again.
Interesting.
So.
Thus the sphere.
Yeah.
Right. I like it.
I have a goal every day. I feel like
just one
major goal every day, and that one major goal is to learn something new today.
Right.
So when I wake up, my goal is to learn something new, whether it's a word, an action, a function. I feel like every day I'm here, I have to learn something so that I can feel like I can pass it on to somebody else. And so, if I haven't learned my thing for today, but maybe it was the triangle of the circle. Instead of a triangle, it needs to be a circle.
I hear you, and just thinking along those lines. I don't actively do that because I do recognize that no matter what we do, our mind learns something new every millisecond.
True. Yeah.
So I'm seeing this pattern and these images and these people walking along here. Mm-hmm. It's new to my mind. It's being memorized. It's creating and shaping my imagination, my thoughts, no matter what I do.
Yep.
It's now within me. Yep. So I'm like a passive learn something new every day guy.
You're the voyeur. You're the learning voyeur.
The learning voyeur. I like that. Interesting.
You watch, you learn.
Yes, but I am rooting for you. I like you. I like your spirit. I like your attitude.
Thank
I like your approach. I think your company has the right ethos. People who respect the cannabis plant, respect the cannabis industry, and some of the values and some of the history behind it.
Oh, yeah.
It created a very unique moment in human history where, it never happens where a commodity, a service, or a good, or some sort of industry will just get eliminated and make it illegal from the earth and then re-legalized, which has created this interesting 10, 20-year, 30-year period of unraveling prohibition.
Yep.
In alcohol, when alcohol was unraveled,
yep.
When alcohol was prohibition back in the 20s and the 1900s,
And how, I'm going to interrupt you, but how interesting. When Prohibition it came out of Atlantic City, they used to run the Prohibition, they would bring it in from the Atlantic City shoreline, run it through Atlantic City, down the Parkway, and get it into New York.
Interesting. But when
See what I did
when
there?
they unraveled Prohibition, they didn't create a new supply chain.
Right.
They didn't create a new industry. They just went back to this old industry that went dormant for like 10 years. The industry that was dormant has been destroyed.
Yeah.
And not that it had any right to exist, and I get it. That's something that people can argue back and forth on. But the old OG industry, those legacy people, they're just, the cartels, they're all just out of the cannabis game or being crushed.
Right.
And so there's this entirely new supply chain being created, which is a very fascinating process of watching human beings decide how they think that should be.
Yeah.
Even like labor unions are jumping in saying it must be organized labor. Well, what does that have to do with freeing the plant?
Yes.
Nothing. But to their point, it's a new industry. They have a right to push their objectives and their agenda. So it's a very fascinating time. It's a very fascinating industry. I'm trying to get one of the labor guys who's here on the podcast a little bit later. But that's a whole nother story.
When you think about it, though, too, it's, protection, right? We sit here as advocates and we sit here and we go, we need to protect the plant. We need to make sure that it's accessible to everybody and anybody.
Right.
It's doing no harm to anybody on a physicality level, right? I feel like in all things, moderation, right?
Right.
And so, but when you have something that is been proven to heal people on many different levels, you've got something that we can go into the industry, or not even the industry, but to the world and say, hey, look at this. We've been holding this down for so long. The suppression has been real. And we're still fighting with colleges. I know there's a local college here in Pennsylvania, Delaware Valley University, and they just added cannabis to their curriculum. And they've been an agricultural college for years, so it just made sense to be able to bring this in. And it's something that you get to learn in from the minute you plant the seed, and they talk about the different hemp derivatives and the cannabinoids, all of these different things. So they're going back to the pure education of the seed, to the plant medicine, which is really a great thing. And I wish we would do that more. Let's get it into the universities and the big colleges. But again, it's that re-regulation and the descheduling, and it's kind of like, the government, from that government level, is like, they're still trying to figure out how they're going to make money from it, right? What's the end game? Everybody wants to make money.
Yeah, well, they're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, well, I think they've known for a while, but they just haven't been able to figure out how to stop. When we get into the big pharma practices and things like that, we could go down a whole nother level.
What's interesting is that there's very few individuals, and I've worked with a lot of regulators, a lot of politicians, a lot of Republicans, Democrats, reps, senators, councilmen. There's very few of these cats that are thinking to themselves, when and if they do get involved in cannabis legalization, because that's only been like the last few years, that legislatures have actually been doing it, they're starting to think about the money. But for the most part, they're still thinking about how do we prevent people from using it? How do we prevent the proliferation? What's the word?
The proliferation.
Proliferation.
Yeah.
I need another cup of coffee. Proliferation of cannabis in the ecosphere.
Yeah.
And that's what their biggest concern is.
Well, it's save our children. What about our children? It's well, then we talk about, now we're getting into, well, how about you educate them?
Yeah.
Talk about it. It's kind of like, it's no different than talking about sex,
Right.
Have that conversation.
But then you get into what is the proper government messaging for cannabis? Okay. And well, that's a very interesting thing. And I had this, we don't need to talk about abortion, but I had this discussion with an abortion individual. So I was like, okay, so abortion is disgusting. Abortion's a horrible thing. You'd never do one. I would never do one. But of course, choice and rights, and you need to protect that as well.
Right.
So how about we have a absolute, you can do whatever you want legally with abortion. It's available, no problem. But we have a big government program to message out there that it's wrong, that it's shameful, that it's irresponsible, that you shouldn't do it, but it's available to you as a right. And they're like, that's interesting. Nobody's going to like that.
Nobody likes when you start opening words for conversation and communication. That means that, because then what happens, the liability falls back to the family realm, right? We want to talk about all these things that are bad for our communities and our families, but we don't want to bring it into our home and talk about it. Communication, I've always been honest with all of my kids. I have 3 children aging from 33 to 21 now, and the conversation has always been very honest in my house. And I said, if you're ever in trouble, I'm your mother, I'm your friend, I am here to help you navigate this life and learn from it, right? But I want to educate you on things. There are bad things out there. There are bad people out there. There's also good things out there, and there's good people. So let's have those conversations. Anytime my kids ever got into trouble, the first person they called was always me. We had a rule of thumb. We will have a conversation about it. The first 24 hours is yours. I'm not going to bring it up. We're not going to have a conversation. We're not going to talk about it. If you got drunk at a party or whatever and you're 17, I'm going to bring you home if you don't feel safe, if there's something, and we'll talk about it. You have 24 hours to soak it in, and then I'm going to ask you questions, and the only rule is don't lie to me. Right?
Gives you some time to calm down too.
Yeah. Well, it gives me time to calm. It gave me time to calm down, and then it gave me the time to be able to listen. Right? We have to hear. A lot of times, many times, people talk, people listen, but they don't listen to hear the words that are being said. And I find that that's what we usually fight with our kids, is that communicational barrier. They're listening, but they're not hearing, right? And so if we had that 24 hours, they knew that there was going to be a conversation. They knew they could prepare. Everybody's preparing for things. And so, I felt like I was giving them a life skill. But I also didn't have issues with drugs or alcohol or addiction issues on the level of what most kids have to go through, the rites of passage. They got drunk at 16 with their friends, and it became a laughable story now, but it didn't move through their lives. I have a daughter who's 33. She does the same thing with her daughter, which is my granddaughter. She's 9 years old. She understands that mommy smokes. She needs it to help her sleep. She needs it to help her function. She's got like a high-level ADHD. But she knows that she doesn't touch the box. The box is locked. So I think if we start having those conversations with our family members and educating them, it doesn't have to be an argument. It's like politics. My best friend is on one spectrum. I'm on another. Do we sit there and talk about you're right, I'm wrong? No, we sit there and have conversations, and I'm like, change my mind. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have communication. It's got to be back and forth. They can't change my mind because I have very specific feelings, and they understand that. But I go into it with, I want you to try to change my mind. Tell me. I want a real conversation. But not a lot of people have that ability to do that. But I was an angry teenager, man. I was mohawk and combat boots. I was like, the whole thing. I was so angry for so long. It's like now I'm 54, and I'm like, I'm not angry anymore. I don't want to be angry anymore.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get angry. I should have been angry when I was younger.
Oh, man.
I'm just saying. It's anyways, but we need to wrap this up. Our producer's over there saying you guys have reached the 20-minute mark. So how do people get in touch with you and find out more about Proteus?
They can visit us on our website, www.proteus420, and it's Proteus420.com. My contact information is in there, and they can also email me directly, D as in David, MM like Michael, at Proteus420.com.
Awesome. Well, we will see you at another episode of Media Unshackled at another conference. We see you out there on the circuit.
Oh, yeah.
We hope your company has tremendous success, and we wish you the best.
Yeah, thank you.